Hey everyone, Tim Biggins here with ANS Solutions. We're going to talk about release automation and what it can do for you. When you first log into release automation, you probably have the landing page. You log into the landing page. Let me start from scratch so you can see what it looks like. If you look here, you have the studio. The studio is more like for admin stuff. We'll look at that later. You also download an agent. You'll hear me talk about that. This is where you get the agent. What I'm into right now is what we call the rock. Okay, so when you launch the rock, which I just did by accident, you'll log in. You might for the first time have this view. I'm not going to talk about this view. Never use this view. Just go straight to events. All right. Now, what you look at first is your dashboard. I'm not going to cover the dashboard because there's so much you can do with it, as far as keep track of your agents, everything it's running, all your deployments, all that good stuff. You can also modify these, move these around, do whatever you need to with them. All right. What we want to start off with is just creating a project. Now, before we jump into creating a project, I just kind of want to go through the menu real quick. Not too detailed, okay? Because you're going to see it as we go through. First of all, we have the designer. Designer is where you do all the work. Now, when you think of release automation, to me, there's two hats that people wear. You have your designer and your builders, and then the reverse to that is you have your deployments, right? So I'm going to maybe separate the videos. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But that way you don't have to watch one all the way through. Just see how to do the other. But most of the designer stuff here is application model. We'll talk about that in a few seconds. Process design, we definitely use. We can share components. I'm not going to get that in this video. I may do another video for that. Same with tags. Import and export's very important, because if you need to import export your products to other environments, you can easily do that as well. Releases is where you do your releases. We'll talk about templates, because you have to have all this right here to do it. Okay. Artifacts are very important, but I may not cover in this video. I may do a separate video just for it, because it's pretty important by itself. Environments, we're definitely going to talk about these. Now, release automation has extra features we're not going to cover, like approvals or rollbacks, or we may cover them. I'm not sure. I do want to make sure you all understand parameters, because they're very important. And then, of course, administration is a little more user store stuff, like token management that would be used. I don't want to cover too much of this. User management, system settings, stuff that you would think would be an administration job. The other thing about DSL is pretty cool, because DSL means I can get, as a developer, I'm a developer, I can get a JSON output, or it's pretty close to JSON output of my project, which is useful for some people, not used for a lot of people, but that's what DSL is. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to designer, application model. If you install the basic, I've started from scratch. I've had to redo my laptop since last time I installed this. It does come with this sample application, but we're going to create a new one. Okay, so you click new, and we'll just give it a name. Okay, so we're going to give this a name. Just demo app is fine. It didn't have to have a description, but if you're going to play with release automation, I truly advise it, and just make stuff that makes sense to you. Now, when you first look at it, you have what's called architects. Now, we're only going to deal with one architect, but think of your architect would be, there's many examples, but what you want to think about is release automation allows containers in a way. I mean, I don't mean containers like Docker, but it means groups of things. So I can have architects. Architects have server types. Server types have environments, right? So truthfully, an architect would have server types. Server types will have agents. Agents will be tied to your environments. And it kind of lays out that way. But so just kind of make sense. So we'll call this, let's just say we have East Coast. East Coast data warehouse. Well, we'll just say East Coast. Okay, that's fine. Save. All right. What did that save? Oh, I thought I edited it. Oh, my bad. Over here, server types. Sorry, I was deleting the server types. I meant your default architecture. So sorry, I got a little brain dump there. So this is where we want it. But what we're going to do with server types, we're just going to remove this one. Okay, your architects. Yeah, no, it's fine. Your architects has to have a server type. So in your server types is where you want to think about maybe app servers. Okay. So we'll save this one, default app server. Okay. And then maybe this one we'll call backend. default backend server. And then not really positive if I spelled that right, but who cares? So, and then we'll need one for, let's say if you have an extra one for utilities, right? Okay, and that would be our utility server. Okay, don't need to make it plural. Now we can go back to architecture and say, okay, now we need you. You're going to have this one, this one, and this one. So now if I had an architect, what I was getting at is if I have one for like East Coast and maybe one for West Coast, and I want to keep those servers separate, then I could do that. And once I assign my server types, I can split it up that way. Okay. So now the next thing we want to do is, and the way I look at server types is what's doing the work. Okay. You'll see in a few minutes that you assign an agent to a server type, and the agent is physically what does the work. So to me, these would be all my IIS servers, my SQL servers, and just maybe some utility command line tools, right? So now what we want to do is we want to go and assign our agents. Now, I only have one agent because I'm running this local. So what I'm going to say is, well, sorry, I got to click it, is I want this one agent to work on all these servers. Now, the reality is you would probably have multiple agents. Well, the fact is you will have multiple agents. You should, if it done correctly. And these agents, like you'd have your apps agents running on one, your backend agents using another, and so forth, so forth. And in your environment, you'd have different environments. So I would have like QA environment would have a set of servers, and I would assign the agents to those. Okay, and that's kind of how that works. The agents, again, is what physically does the work. And if you remember at the beginning of the video, I showed you where to get the agents. But they do all the work. Okay. So that's almost pretty much it for setting it up. Now, the one thing we want to look at is once we get to this point, then we start building it out. Okay. I'm just double looking at everything, just make sure everything's happy. So, all right, I think we're good. So we're going to start building. So I didn't want to jump into the building, just make sure I wasn't missing anything. So let's go to build. Oh, I'm sorry, not build. You go to process design, because now we're gonna basically build out some processes. Okay, your actions really is the heart of release automation. They are many actions. Now, the key to this, if we don't have, we being Broadcom CA, if we don't have the actions, you can also build the action. But most of the time, the REST action by itself is really enough to get you through. Okay, because if you look at the goal of release automation isn't to rebuild your work, it's to assist you in your automation process, right? So a lot of times when you're working with third parties, like we do have plugins for TFS, we have plugins for TeamCity, a lot of the name brands, especially JFrog, Artifactory. I mean, if you just go through here and look, there's Tomcat. Let's say, I don't have the TFS plugin, but okay, so there I can at least create an artifact. So there are some stuff straight out of the box without doing the plugins. Now the plugins are very simple to install, not a big deal. There's actually a root place you put it in, and it does it for you. But a lot of this is very much easily done, right? So you can automate a lot of tasks. You can restart servers if you need to. Anyway, I guess what I'm getting at is the thought process behind this is almost endlessly, right? But before we do that, a couple of best practices. Well, actions, this is important. Actions become flows. Flows become processes. Processes is what you deploy, okay? I'm going to keep this very simple. Oops, sorry, I did it again. What we want to do is we want to create a new category, and we'll call this, text things. Okay, you want to get more professional with this, but like what I'm getting at is you want your things to be semi in a group. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see that, but my screen looks pretty dim today. All right, it is what it is. So then we'll create an action. I'm just gonna do maybe a text hello world. Well, let's do a folder first. So yeah, let's do that. So we're going to say, because I really don't know what I'm doing, to be honest with you. I'm just kind of building this on the fly. Folder actions. Okay. And then here we'll say, we can simulate the process of maybe building out a web service. Okay. So add an action. We'll say folder. And the truth is, I can make this video last for days, and we can just build something massive out. But we're not going to do that, right? What I'm going to do, make sure a folder exists. Now, see what I'm saying? There's a whole bunch of stuff here. Looking for create folder. Create folder. There we go. Okay. And you can do the settings over here, but I'm going to just drop it over here so you can see. Because it's the same settings. Almost everything has inputs, outputs, and settings. Okay, so you kind of want to look through each one of those. And they also have properties over here. Now, this, I haven't clicked on one yet that does. But if you look over here, these parameters are very important too. Now, I may do a video just by parameters by itself. Because there's some very good parameters that you can give. And you can also create parameters. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and create one. We'll just, now, parameters have global perspectives as well. Like you would want to probably build, like, I don't need this to be global. Let's just create one new. And when you create the parameters, you have a lot of options, right? Sorry, string, blah, 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 blah. And I kind of do the same thing here. I like to keep them in an order, right? So that way I can find them easy. And what we'll say is string. And we're going to call this one root. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and hard code this definition. Whenever you look at your parameters, you have the concept of pausing your flow for a user to input data. I've used that plenty of times. Your environment variables would be, we're going to use that in a few seconds, but environment variable is what gets entered, I'll show you later, at a higher level, I guess you could say. And I'll show you where those are when we get to it. The releases, on the other hand, that gets created during the release. Okay, so I'll do examples of each of those so you can see what they look like. Now, first thing I want this one to say is just go C temp. I don't know if I have IIS running on this machine, just because I've got so many other products running on this machine, but we can look. So there's IIS. Here is an inet pub. And there is a www root. Okay, so it works for me. But we need a working folder, so we're going to call it temp working. All right, and what we'll actually do, you know, the whole environment thing, we're going to add, if I do Alt Shift, it gives me my parameters. And what we're going to look for is my environment. Application name, environment name. There we go. So then I'd have QA, prod, dev, so forth, so forth. Okay. All right. Now, I apologize again if you see the time break in my time. I have to stop every now and then to do work stuff as well. So what we can do here, new folder path, we can bring this over to root. I can say fail if it doesn't exist, but I don't want it to. And that's pretty much all I want to do here. So we're done with this one. Save. Now, what I want to do now is create a file. Okay, so we'll delete this thing. It got ugly, so let's go ahead and delete it. And we'll say new category. Create file. We're going to keep it as simple as possible because, like I said, this could take weeks, could take days, it could take months. You can go on forever. But what we're going to do is just create a simple action. I'm going to do a text file. And then that text file. Again, I'll just say add, just bring it here so I have more real estate. And right here we're going to say maybe create a web page. There we go. That's fine with me. We're deploying our new web page. Now our file path is going to be, and that's why you want to put this in a parameter, right? Because now I can use it here. Text to add. Let's go ahead and build this. We'll say HTML. Let's go ahead and close our tag so we don't forget. We'll put a header in there. And the body, we'll simply say, and just to make it fun, we'll go ahead and say we want the environment name, It's deployed to blah, 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 blah from RA. Okay. And if we want to, we can actually add the date just to be fun. Let's see. Well, I thought the date was in there. Is it not? Deployment date. Yeah. Okay. That works for me. I'm cool with that. Now, let's, if we can do that, let's put a break. And then here we'll say, get from that at, there we go. Oh, it disappeared. You got to be careful with that because it's, let's use a friendly name. This right here is very flaky, right? Especially in Windows because it doesn't really, sometimes, I was going to try to show you, but sometimes you really can't tell if you have this item or before or after or something like that. Anyway, so here's our web page. We're going to save that, and that's fine. We're going to say create if it doesn't exist, true, and we need to give it a name, this path, but we need to add the name. So we'll call it hello from ra.txt. Okay. Now, the truth is, what we should do is put this name in a variable. Okay. I don't like a lot of strings here because you'll find out later on you're going to use them somewhere else. And that's where you get messed up. So we're going to just say string. And I know we're still in our root path, but it's fine. We'll call it site page name. Not appropriate, but who cares? And we'll just paste it right here. All right, save. And now what we'll do here is we'll get rid of that and we'll just drag this over. Okay. And that should be fair because I think our root has the backslash in it. So we don't need double backslash. It does. Okay. Output settings. We're good. And that's really all we need to do. I mean, that's a very simple action there. Okay. If we wanted to, we could copy this to IIS and restart IIS and all that cool stuff. And I may go back and do that later. But just to show you some more stuff in work. But I want to keep this very simple. All right. So now what we could do is create a flow. Now, this is very bad convention, but we're going to do it anyway. And again, you probably want to create a category, which I just call a folder. But what we'll call this one is deploy IIS. Okay. So save. And the truth is this create folder, probably should name it to something more realistic, like maybe create temp folder. Okay. There we go. Save. And now what we got to do is just drag these over. So create folder, create web page. And oops. Create web page. There we go. And then just create the link. And if you hit this cool little button down here, it centers it for you. All right, we'll save it. And now our process here is very simple. We just create a new process. We'll call this deploy. It wants to know which server you're going to use. Now, the truth is I can go delete all these other servers because I'm only using one server, right? But what it's really asking behind the scenes is which agents are you using. In this case, we're just going to use this one. Okay. And just, you can click here and it should bring up your list. If I got it right. Okay, there it goes. And we want to know our flows and deploy IIS. Save and close. We'll just pretty it up. Save. Now this is pretty common sense here. I'm just going to publish it. Okay. Now when I click publish, I can give it a tag, and you'll see that shortly, which allows me to reference it again. But more importantly, I need to make sure it's assigned to an environment. Okay. And once you do this, usually once, you don't have to do it again. I could click this and go directly to it, but I don't want to. I just want to say publish. Okay, so what you basically did was we created a project. Within our project, we went through the steps and created all the environments we needed to. And then we created a simple flow that should create a temp folder for us. And then it should create a web page inside that folder. Okay, now if I go here to my, now your design hat is off. Okay, now you're going to think about your releases. So first thing we do is create a template. We're going to say new, deploy IIS, which is fine. Okay. We're going to say new templates. Okay. Well, this was a template category. I'm sorry, because you can have multiple categories, right? So I may have some for databases. I may have some for IIS. I may have some for backend WebSphere, right? But now we got to create a template inside that category. Okay. I can help you with this. Let's see. So first thing you can do is create a template category. Okay. And then the next thing you need to do is create a template within that category. Okay, because you can see here. All right, fair enough. So we'll call this one deploy to IIS. It could be the same name. It's a relative at that point. So it wants to know, what do you want to do? Now, the cool thing is I can initialize the step. There's a difference between pre-plan and pre-deployment. A lot of this has to do with cleanup, getting things ready, just different things. I was trying to read what it was saying right here. Use it to update deployment according to selected environments. You know, that's fine. A lot of times, though, you got to be careful because variables don't come through unless you do them correctly. Now, the other thing, too, is we'll get to that in a few minutes, because when I say variables, they're properties, and I apologize about that. To me, as a developer, they're variables, but in release automation, they're properties, okay? So the first thing it says, okay, well, what do you want to do? Well, we got to add a step. Well, the step is fairly simple, because if you remember earlier when we did our deploy, it's going to know and it's going to grab the latest. Okay, so we're going to say, and again, deploy was a very bad name. Probably shouldn't have called it that, but let me hit save. Okay, and now say we can drag this right over, and now we have our step into here. And again, I apologize, that was very bad. I don't think I can go back to it until after I save this, but once you go back, you'll see that I called it deploy. See, my process is called deploy. I should have named it something more convenient. And that's one of the reasons why you got to be careful with naming conventions and best practices and all that. Because somebody's looking at this and they're like, hey, I'm going to add a step. Well, what do you mean deploy? I'm working on the deploy now, right? So it can get kind of confusing. Now, you also have a post step. Usually this post step, a lot of times can be used to send emails or just clean up, right? Delete folders, label tags, things like that. Something that happened after the deployment. But right now, we're just going to stick with the basics. The other thing, too, is I can add properties. And I may add this here just so you can see how it works. IIS name, IIS, let's call it HTML file name. Okay, and save. Now, here, once you do this, you can give it the value. Hello world.html. Okay, now that's its value. I now can use this inside my deployment, but since we've already created it, I'll go back and show you how to do that later. I may do that in another video. But there's 3 places to use parameters, okay? One of them is where you saw me do it. The other one is here. And the environment variables are up here. Environment parameters, are up here. So we'll get to those shortly. All right, so now once we've created, where's my little cheat sheet here? Once we've created a template, the next step is to create a deployment plan. Okay. So, and it's pretty simple. It's the only green big button on the screen. Okay. Oh, well, sorry. We've got to create a project. Tell me you already have your project up. So we'll say deploying IIS. I think it's okay with spaces, but as a developer, I don't like spaces. Deploying IIS demo. How's that? Okay. That works. So now we can go back and create our deployment plan. And the cool thing is they give you this link to get back to it. So we're going to say deploying to, I was going to say dev, but the truth is we'll bounce through all of them. Deploying to IIS. How's that? All right, we're good. This is not emergency. It's minor. You know, we'll just leave it as is. Create from template. Now that's important because we did have our template, even though I clicked away from it because I forgot to create the project. But notice our template's here. And it knows what we're using. Now, if we have an artifact, you can choose the artifact here. We'll talk about that later. I'll probably do another video for it. In fact, I'm pretty positive I will. So in the manifest stuff, I'll talk about that when we talk about artifacts. So, deploy IIS. Why aren't you going? What am I missing? Oh, got to have a build. It's very important. We'll call this, there we go. Now save. All right, now here's our deployment. It looks very plain, but this is really your deployment, okay? Because once we have it, initialize steps, no artifacts. It has our one deployment step. We have no post, and if we set up a rollback, we'd have a rollback. Now, before I run this, we haven't created deployment yet. You know, it's okay. I'll go ahead and run it, and then I'll go back and talk about the properties because I do want to show you how the other properties are here. They're environment properties. So when you ask, I get asked all the time, if I was going to do settings for a database in QA, How do I change those settings than the ones in productions? Well, you do it in environment variables, and once you set it up, you're done with it. Okay, so let's go ahead and deploy. Let's see what it does. Okay, our first deploy. Whoops, I may throw it a whack. So our first deploy. Okay, we're going to pick our only environment we have. Again, I don't like the name. We should rename it, but it's okay. And then we're just going to say execute and go. Okay, it's running. That's why I got quiet. Okay, it was blocked for a second, but now it's running. Not sure why it's blocked. It could be a permission thing. And the truth is, I don't even know if this will work. We're going to go C. And where's my temp? I'm on the other file, by the way. There it goes. Okay, so it's done. So our deployment is complete. And if I go into temp, let me drag it over so you can see it did create the environment. Okay. And it created our hello world. So it picked the default architect, which I'll have to go back and look at that because I was expecting, oh, you know what? We didn't create those. I'm sorry. But that's okay. I'll show you how to fix that too. I meant to change dev, QA, and stuff like that, but I was brain dead today. I apologize about that. But at least it worked, right? So that's pretty much how it works. Now, if I wanted to change that, if I go into my environments and tags, notice here that it's only got the one environment. So let's go ahead and change this. We'll call it dev. Okay. And we'll say dev. Okay. And we're going to add another one for QA. Oops, QA. Okay. We'll add another one for prod. And yeah, that probably broke our thing because I got rid of it, but that's okay. And let's say you have one more for stage. There we go. Okay, that's it. What I want to do though is, remember when I said you can have tags? This is, since you don't have the tag, it says the latest. I'm just going to go ahead and assign all these. Save and continue. And save and continue. And save and continue. That way I don't have to deal with missing deployments, right? So now let's go back and look. So if I go back to, I may have to create it again because I created it last. But since I'm here, these are the environments, right? Okay. I totally forgot to set those up, and I apologize. Normally you'd set those environments up pretty early in the game, right? But let's see what, parameter configuration. Now since I have the environments, if I had parameters, I can set them here, set the values here. So let's do that. Let's go designer, process design, here, actions. So let's stick it in our file. How's that sound? Okay, and then what I want to do over here is create a new parameter. Make it a string. Now you can make it a password. So if you're doing database passwords, you can do the password and it doesn't show up, which is pretty cool. I mean, it shows up, but it shows up as a star thing. Some environment data, EVN. Okay, and we're going to change this to environment variable, and we're going to say save. Okay, and then what we're going to do is use this inside of our text. Okay, and we'll say from colon, need another break here because it's just basically HTML. Break from, and now here we can use our environment. Not that, I don't know where that came from. So I said you got to be careful because this little paint screen is very flaky. So what I meant to do is alt that. Somehow I must have hit paste. And then we just go look for our environment variable, which is here. Okay, and notice it has the cool little E at it. So we'll save. We'll save this. And then we're going to go over here, change our process. So now we have two variables. And let me go back real quick. If I wanted to get the other variable, what I would have to do is say, remember there's three variables. So if I wanted to get the variable that we created in the template, you'd have to do rock, which is Release Automation Center. And then in here, you would get parameters right here. And then you'd say get the parameter. Okay. Right here, this one, get parameter value. And then you would have to make sure this name matches the name of the parameter. And that's all you have to do. And then you can use it as a normal step. Okay. Then what most people do after that is they add that to a parameter over here. And then they just use it loosely. Okay. And maybe we'll go back and do that just so you can see how it works. But right now what I want to do is make sure, and when I come to publish, I always want to triple check to make sure my changes are there. because sometimes because of caching, I noticed they haven't been. So let's do publish. Now here I don't have to sign anymore because they've already been assigned. And I'm not going to add a tag. I'm fine. I'm just going to say publish. It's publishing. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to jump over, and I apologize about missing the whole environment thing, but hopefully you get it. That was shame on me. But we're going to go to templates. We're going to create a new template because that one's probably broke anyway. New template category. We're going to call it redeploy. You know, I was going to say I don't need a whole new template category, but since I added the environments, I'm going to do that anyway. Redeploy. All right, we'll just call it that. Really crappy name. Don't ever do that. Oops, for IIS. There we go. Okay. Now what we can do is, I'm not going to fly through all this because, I'm going to fly through this because you've seen all this before. So it's looking for our step. We're going to call deploying to IIS. This is our step. Unfortunately, we called it deploy. I meant to rename that while I was over there, but that's okay. So let's go here. And that whole deploy name, I'm probably going to lose this because it's kind of hard to bounce back and forth. If you went here, let's see if I can do this. It's probably going to crap on me, but let's see. This process. It's picking up this, right? So we should have named that differently. Okay, so all right. Sorry, I had to stop for a second. But one thing I want to talk about is here's the properties. Sorry, and again, you can just add one. So call IS, and then value be. So I did realize that in my text file I named it txt. We need to go fix that. But now that I have that here, I can go use it elsewhere. We need to go change before I create a deployment. Let's go to our process, and it's kind of good you see me do this because I make mistakes like everybody else. And then I think our property is just over here. But what I like to triple check is to make sure that it does change. So if we go look at our file, and what I mean by that is in our site name, we named it txt right here. It needs to be HTML. It's a website. Oops, HTML. Okay, there we go. So now we're good. Save. All right, and just for kicks and giggles, I like to redeploy. And in the process, I'm going to copy this one. No, it's fine. I was going to say I'm going to rename that one, but it's fine. It is what it is. Let's go ahead and redeploy. Go. And now let's go to, hopefully that picked up. Because normally I don't fly through this way. I take my time and just triple check everything. But now we're going to go look at our, you guessed it, our templates. We're going to say all. This is one we were just working on, so that's fine. And now we're going to create a deployment. Now, how I got there, let's go back because I did pretty quick. I was here. If I go to releases, I can see my templates. Remember, I said you can have many templates as you want. Okay. This is the first one we created, and then we created one right after it. All right. And then we can click in here. In our environments, remember the whole environment variables? We now can enter data here. Well, technically you would do it here. So environments. Oh, not there. I'm sorry. Environment configuration. Let's go here, here, some data. Hello world. Nope. Hello from Tim. There we go. Now that's only QA. Would have to set it for each environment. Okay. Hello from Tim. We're just going to do all of them. How's that? Because don't really care. Save. Save. Here you have that one. And the good thing is if you click on this, like if you have a lot of them, it shows you the one that you're missing. Okay. And save. So now let's go back to our deployment. So we'll go back to our template. Okay. And we'll say all. Click on this one. We'll go ahead and create a deployment plan. Now, technically, we already have a plan out there we could go get, but I'm just going to create a fresh one because what we're going to do here is say deploy to maybe to IIS. And we'll give this a build of 3. All right. We're okay with that template. We're okay with that project. We're going to say save. Now, when we say deploy, again, the only thing we have over here is our deployment step. We're going to say deploy. Now we're going to say deploy to dev because now we have our environments. Okay, remember we set those up. It was my bad. I missed that in the setup step. But now we have the environments. Okay, now I could say duplicate. I could say deploy again. There's a lot of things I can do. But what I like to do at this point, once everything's set up, I can go to deployment plans by project. Okay, and I can click on it and I can redeploy from here. If I click deploy, I can say QA. Another thing you can do also with your deployments is you can say deployment pipeline overview. Now I can add a project. This is why you'd have that project. Okay. Well, I didn't see our project. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong application. Demo app. There we go. Now it sees our project. Save. Now I have dev. After dev, I want QA. So I can just click it and drag it over. There we go. And I want to go to stage before I go to prod. Okay, come on. In the middle. There we go. Now what I can say is click. Okay, so that was good. So now what I do is go ahead and deploy it, promote it to the next environment. Yeah. Go. And that's giving that nothing changed. Okay, so now it's running here. Let's give it a second. It's deploying. Go ahead and say run. Yes. Well, should have ran. Go. Yes. All right. So while that one's thinking, we're just going to go force it. So let's go back here. We're going to deployment plans by project, or we can go to deployments. Our deployments show all of our deployments. This is the one that's running now. Oh, I'm not sure why it ran into an error. What is our error? That's why it did it. Well, let's go see what the problem is. Again, that was one of the things about me flying through this. I probably didn't set up the server types after we set up the environments. We're supposed to set up the environments first, sorry. So let's go set that up. And if this really is a bothersome, I probably should do this over, but who cares? You guys get it, right? Before I even do all that, let's see if our first one made it through. Let's see, we sent it to temp, right? Okay, there's dev. And here's this. Now, it didn't pick up our change, so we'd have to remove it and add it back, but that's fine. Because what I'd expect it to have done is done this. HTML. Okay, yes, and then that would have been that. Okay, but it did pick up dev, which tells me if I ran it normally without doing the whole deployment by project thing, then it would have worked just fine. The other thing we can do is just really just go through here and just kind of peek at things, make sure everything's okay. So we have our server here, which is fine. See this right here? This is what it didn't have. So we renamed the first one so it worked. So if you remember earlier when I said different environments, you have to set it for each environment. That one's fine because we just renamed it. So let's go ahead and fix that, okay? Just so you can see what the problem was. Select an agent. Okay, bam, bam, bam. Save. That's prod. QA. QA says, hey, what agents do you want to use? Well, I want to use this agent for all of them. Okay, that works for me. Okay. The first one save, I forgot to hit assign. Yep, they're there. Okay, so prod, QA, and stage. So now let's go ahead and select these. And now save. To fix our boo-boo, truthfully, I would go and remove the parameter, and then I would add it back, and then I would redeploy. But I'm not going to do that. It's kind of a waste of time right now. Well, you know what? Yeah, because this video is already getting pretty long. Let's go. We fixed this boo-boo. So let's go now to our pipeline. Okay. And then rerun. Yes. Actually, we probably should say, oh, there it goes. It worked. Okay. I was going to try to remove it and add it back, but I didn't have to. So notice now it worked. So we're going to go ahead and promote to the next environment, which is stage. Now, in here, I'd want an approval step. Okay, and approval steps are pretty simple. Before I do that one, we'll say approval. Now, there's probably millions of ways of doing this, but to make it simple, application, environment, add approval. I'm going to say approve before. I mean, I could do a manual one, but that's okay. I want to approve before a step. So deploy, latest, agent group, that's fine. But there's different ways of setting this up any way you want it, right? So a couple of things you might want to look at is what works best for you. I usually just do this one. Okay. And then let it go. So, but in this case, and which environment we want to go to? Production. Okay. Approval gate. Sorry. Probably should go change that other one. Deploy, choose group. That's fine. Latest and save. What? Oh, I don't have my agents in a group, so that's fine. Whenever you do the agents, you can add them to a group. But what I would do is I'd pick prod. Let's go make sure I get rid of the other one. Edit. Save. And what this is telling you is before it goes to each environment, okay, what kind of approval do you want to make? Okay, that's all that is. Agent groups are here. If you have multiple groups, I don't really have one, but I could create one, just say one and only group. Okay. And then I can go back and do that other approval. That's all you gotta do. But since we showed you how to do it that one way, let's go do it this way. This one. I'm going to go ahead and deploy, and we'll say publish to prod, and we'll production. Save. Okay, and now it's running. And if you did have the approval gate, it would be here as well. So let's go here. All right, so we have QA, we have stage, we have prod, we have dev. We also have the first one we did, which we didn't like it very much. Let's get rid of it. And if I pick here, again, our variable name was a little wrong. That's okay. If I do, oops, HTML, apologize about that. You probably hear a helicopter fly over. And it worked just fine. It picked up our QA, it picked up our date. Now, there's ways of formatting your date, and it picked up our variable that we had in there. So anyway, I hope this was useful. It was kind of mishy-mashy. You may have to watch it a couple of times or ask me, say, hey, tell them this was stupid, do it again. But what you did was you created, let's go back to it. Okay. So what we did was we created a project. If you remember that, we started here. Okay. In our project, you have architects and you have server types. Then we should have went and created our environments, but I did not. Sorry about that. Go create your environments and sign your agents. Well, I'm sorry. Let's do it one more time. Create the project. Use the architect to create the architects. Create your server types. Sign the agents. Okay. And I guess it doesn't really matter because you need your environments for it. I was going to say you can sign your agents, but you have to go back and do it again anyway. So then go and do your environments. Okay. Then go sign your agents. How's that? Does that sound better? Then you can go to designer. That'd be setting it up, process designer. You come in here, you create your actions. Remember, we have millions of actions. I wouldn't say millions, but there's a lot. And if you don't have an action, use a REST call. You'll find out 99% of the time that works. Then your actions become flows. Your flows become processes. Your processes get deployed to your template. Now, we'll get to that in a few seconds because I want to talk about parameters. You have parameters here that you use. You'll also have environment parameters, which are set up over here. If I go parameter configuration, right? And then you also have your deployment parameters. We'll show that in a few seconds. Once I deploy it, I create a template category. In my template category, I create a template. In my template, I have properties here as well. Okay, so that's 3 places I can use them. Here, I take the step that I deployed, I drag it over, I create a deployment plan. Well, the deployment plan then creates my deployments. Okay. So your deployment plan kind of looks like this, and you say deploy. Anyway, so I hope all that makes sense. I hope it's useful. That's a very 101 level here. Just kind of walking you through it. Kind of play with it, and just go back and mess it up. Hit me an email if you have any questions. Thank you.